Just touch these two strands together, and the video is finished. Hours of blood, sweat and tears making it, finally at an end. But do I have the right? Release me!
No, Zach. I'm sorry, but I can't let that video get out.
Don't touch that switch!
Why not?
It deletes the entire work that I've put into this video so far. I've worked so hard on it!
Well, when you put it that way, I suppose I can just let it slide.
Okay. Thank you.
No worries. Well, since I've absolutely accomplished nothing, I'll be off.
That's what you think! Huh? Die, bitch! Yes! Die! Die already! Die! There you go, fucking finally. Sure does like to draw out a death scene, doesn't he? Jesus fucking Christ. Hello everyone, and welcome back to the Review in Space. Today is a very, very special day, because we are going to be reviewing one of the hallmark episodes in all of Doctor Who's history, the genesis of the Daleks.
All 6 parts.
All 6 parts of them. It's a big day. This is like one of the first Doctor Who episodes I ever watched. It's a lot of people's favourite episodes, so I hope that we do this justice.
It was the first classic episode that I ever watched as well.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
It was just
crazy.
after, I think it was just after series 5, where I decided I want to go rewatch some of the classic episodes. And
Interesting.
Genesis of the Daleks, you know, got to start with a Dalek episode, if anything.
You do. It's the best place to start with Classic Who because it's that familiarity of what you know from New Who. It's like it's those tin pepper pots from the new series with the screaming voices and all that. But yeah, I first watched Genesis of the Daleks when my parents bought me the VHS of it back in 2004. I want to say I got into Classic Who before New Who started. So yeah. But. Yeah, what a tremendous story. All 6 episodes. The thing is you don't feel really the length of it.
No.
I do say that, though we did end up watching the episode on
a bootleg reverse.
We did. We're not going to name it because it's illegal. But we watched it on an unsavory website. That makes it sound like fucking somewhere else. But we watched it on insert website name here. At like slightly faster speed as well, and the photo and the video was kind of reversed. The reason we did this is because like my room is like being packed up this week, and my like DVD player is packed up, and most of my DVDs are in boxes now, which is why we had to watch it via those means. But we enjoyed it just the same.
Yeah, definitely.
Just the same. This was your second or third time watching it this year?
Third time watching the whole thing.
Really? So you watched it all the way through 2 others times?
Yes. Yeah.
Lovely. Yeah, for me, I don't fucking know how many times I've watched it. I've also listened to the audio drama of it, like the audio adaptation, the novelization, VHS, DVD as well. All forms of this story is really, really good. Written by Terry Nation, starring Tom Baker, Liz Sladen, and
Harry's actor.
Ian Marta, I think is his name. Don't quote me on that. I'm sorry if I got that wrong, but I think that's right. Who knows? But yeah, it's an amazing cast. It's an amazing story, and like I say, even though it was like our version of it that we watched today was like sped up just like by 0.2%.
Yeah.
It was still, you didn't feel the length of it. It's still 6 parts, and it felt like it went by just like that. Amazing adventure this one is. It's iconic for a reason. It's the Doctor trying to wipe out all the Daleks, and then when he actually comes to do that, he can't do it because he's the Doctor and he feels that genocide is the worst possible thing you can do, and he's right. So he doesn't do it because that's why he's the guy that we root for in this lovely TV show that we call Doctor Who. Shall we just start at the beginning, or how do you want to like sort of structure this review?
Well, we might as well start from the beginning and run through it.
So, the Doctor is greeted by a Time Lord in some wasteland place that is later revealed to be Skaro, and it's kind of mysterious at first, but it kind of like is straight, like there's no bullshit. It's just straight to, we're in this now. We're in this adventure. You're already on Skaro. Deal with it. You're gonna try and fix this future problem, being the Daleks. And so that's what the Doctor sets out to do.
It's weird that he didn't start off coming out from the TARDIS. It's just you start off with
no
soldiers.
TARDIS. We see no TARDIS this whole episode.
No,
This whole
that's right.
adventure. The time ring is all there is. And this is the first and last time we ever see the time ring in Doctor Who.
I guess,
A one-time use is for this story.
I guess because after the way the episode ended, they just
Well,
didn't want to go
just
through that again.
Spinning around in circles.
They just
It
start off
was so
with
silly.
Tom Baker just coming on, and the first thing he does is
He was just doing this. Yeah, that was quite funny.
then he
But,
gets approached by the Man in Black. I thought the first time watching it that it was the Valiard.
Did you?
Yeah.
I think maybe it's implied in extended media that he's some sort of special Time Lord. In the show itself, he doesn't have a name that I'm aware of. He might come back in the Deadly Assassin episode, which is a Gallifrey-centric story in the Fourth Doctor's era coming up. I don't know. Potentially, I'm not sure. That bit is hazy to me. But an amazing little scene that I never really paid much attention to until this watch, actually, is the Doctor stood on a landmine. It kind of sets the tone for the rest of the episode, how there's always tension building, and also it's a nice trust exercise between Harry and the Doctor, and he's like, don't you argue, Doctor. And how Harry can like pull his weight too, and how he's like a valuable part of this TARDIS team.
Yeah.
Which I really appreciate, because sometimes you get TARDIS teams where it's the Doctor, primary companion, and then the sort of Harry companion that is always just kind of the comic relief, and that's it.
Like Rhodes and Mickey, or Amy and Rory in the first series.
I say less so with Rory. I think that Rory kind of comes into his own towards the end, but yeah. Nardole. Nardle's a good example. Nardle's a good example of that sort of like tertiary character, that sort of supporting companion. But no, Harry really come into his own in this story, and he kind of had to, because this is a big moment in Doctor Who. Also, this is like my favourite TARDIS team. I love Fourth Doctor and Sarah with Harry as well. It's a great era for the show. So episode 1, so they get to the trenches, and we get introduced to this whole idea that Skaro has been going on like this war for centuries now, and so much so that like Khalid and the Thals, and it's been going on so long that now like they're relying on weaponry from all different eras. So they've gone from high-tech weapons to then just bolt action rifles to then eventually bows and arrows. Apparently, it's a good set. It's a good like jumping on point for like this sort of like setting to then introduce the Daleks in that way. It's interesting that we don't actually. When do we meet Davros?
Right. Well,
right at the end, isn't it? Right.
Yeah. Well,
we
see him, but you don't necessarily meet him.
No.
In that sense.
In the first episode, you see him at the end when he's like doing firing practice with this first prototype Dalek,
which is probably one of the best kind of enemy reveals.
It is
in all of Doctor Who.
I think so.
Even then, he's not. You kind of can see what kind of a person he is. He's not hidden away like in the start of Stolen Earth, where it's just his hand.
Yeah,
you kind of get a sense
cool.
that you already know who it is, but you know, this shroud, the darkness. It's like you can see him, but you don't really know what he's entirely about.
Yeah.
And then you cut to the Dalek next to you, and you realise, hang on a minute, he's controlling a Dalek.
Yeah.
He's flicking a switch. He's doing what he.
This is the creator of the Daleks. How evil does the creator of the Daleks have to be? Which is what this whole entire story is centered around. And the original title for the story, people think, was just going to be called Davros. This story was originally going to be called Davros, but because of or clickbait, for lack of a better word, because of buzzwords and titles of episodes, that gets people to watch it more. If an episode has the word Dalek in there, they're more likely to click on it and watch it. At least back in the day, they would tune in. They'd be like, "Oh, this is a Dalek Doctor Who. I like the Daleks in Doctor Who." So they'd watch that over an episode that's called Davros, because at that point, you don't know who the fuck that is.
No,
you've never met him before.
I think you said it as well when we finished that first part, where. Imagine if the title wasn't Genesis of the Dalek, if they had gone with Davros, and then you see the reveal of the Dalek at the end. And then
that would have been such a cool reveal to see the first Dalek in there and not realise, this first episode has been leading up to the first ever Dalek in history appearing. And to be honest, it would have fit if it was just titled Davros in hindsight, because it is about him. It's not really about the Daleks at all. I mean, it's about the Doctor preventing the Daleks, but there's very little Dalek in
not a lot of interaction. It's just they pace along, they shoot
until
the guy,
until the final scene. You only see 3 Daleks on screen at one given time until the very end, where they all blast Davros to high hell. So I think it would have been cool if it was titled Davros, but then again, it might not have the notoriety and the iconicism if it wasn't titled Genesis of the Daleks, which is probably why we're talking about it today, partially because it's such a grandiose name, whereas calling it Davros might not hit as hard. But it kind of makes sense to call it Davros, because the first ever episode of the Daleks we see is called The Daleks. That's what it's called.
Yeah.
So
and the setup as well of the Khaleds and their military
and how on the nose it is when the Doctor's like, Khaled, that's an anagram of... And he's he's kind of piecing it together, which is interesting. It's funny how self-aware the script is in that respect.
But also, it's also very on the nose with what kind of a theme it's based off of. You know, in terms of real world history.
Yeah. I mean, I wonder what that's referencing.
No idea.
Well, I mean, the thing is that in pop culture in the 60s, Daleks were actually meant to be like space Nazis. Wow. That's genuinely what they were pitched as, I think, with the BBC, because it wasn't... Sorry if you're going to hear beeping outside. They were literally marketed and pitched to the BBC execs, because obviously the World War II... Because World War II obviously had not happened too long ago. They were like, we want an enemy that relates to real world, and that people can rally against and root against in TV. And I think that's kind of how they pitched the Daleks, as them being space Nazis, for lack of a better word. Which is interesting that it's so on the nose of the Khaleds doing that hand
and the uniform as well. Even one of them has the star.
And when you see Nida for the first time, I mentioned, it'll be interesting. He had a moustache here. What do you think, Adam? And you were just like,
oh God, no. The haircut as well.
Yeah, the haircut. Jesus
and the accent.
Christ.
Is he? Would he actually? He sounds European. He sounded European.
Who knows? He probably had an accent on him, but
yeah. But it is interesting. I mean, we always knew that Daleks, they're all about top supremacy, purity of their own,
and also just intense
annihilation,
and also just discrimination as well against all other life forms. So
it's fitting, really.
Yeah, on the nose and ham-fisted, but fitting. Very much so. I love the bit where he's just emptying his pockets and he's fucking 100 items come out on the table and they're like, what the fuck is this? And also you see the bag of jelly babies on there as well, and the time ring and the Sonic. It's great.
Did you get for a jelly baby?
Jelly baby? He didn't do that in this episode either. What a shame. Well, no, he did, didn't he? Did he?
No,
he didn't.
One. No. There's no point in being grown up if you can't be childish sometimes.
Exactly. Why didn't you do that in this episode, Tom?
Well, he had another iconic line coming up later on, didn't he?
He did? He did, yeah. All he had to do was that. Yeah. Well, he had a few, actually. He had a few really iconic lines when he's talking to Davros. Iconic
if
stuff.
you created a bioweapon in the laboratory...
and it would destroy all other life forms, and then Davros goes on and says, "Hold in my hand a capsule that contains such power the life and death on such a scale was my choice. I want to do it. It's such an amazing scene, isn't it?
It's almost like he's talking about the reality bomb in that episode, isn't it?
Yeah, almost like accidental foreshadowing. Yeah, I suppose I'll give you that. Yeah.
Or maybe they just took inspiration from that line.
Well, I mean, most likely.
Yeah.
But yeah. The thing is, though, is that like, with like all of New Who's shortcomings with like experimenting with like the Dalek canon, I still don't think it really tarnishes how good this story is. I mentioned to you, or reminded you, how Moffat made Davros open his eyes in Magician's Apprentice, and how that's fucking impossible because Davros has no eyes, hence why he has the blue thing here, because eyes got blown out. When I don't know the backstory there, but his eyes were gone, mate. Unless he grew a second pair. And then the other thing was the whole like Daleks emotion thing being like hardwired out of them. Kind of makes sense here now, having it in this story first, but then they kind of undo that later and say Daleks can be good. So, but even then, that doesn't tarnish what this story does. Yeah. For just show defining moments. Like people talk about. Maybe not this whole serial. I mean, some people do. We do. We are right now. That's what we're doing. But people talk about the two wires scene. People talk about the laboratory scene with Tom and Davros. Yeah. It's just iconic. It's iconic Doctor Who. The whole thing. It's just undeniable. It's honestly brilliant.
There were a few slow points in the show, in the run through all the 6 parts.
The pacing in Classic Who is always like that, though, isn't it?
But then in moments like Sarah Jane and the prisoners trying to escape.
Trying to escape up the
5 minutes at the end of one episode, 2 minutes at the start of the next, and basically all they accomplished was they knocked out one guy, and then everyone but 2 people died.
And then they went back to work anyway and were captives again. Yeah. It was just filler, I think. It was a bit of filler. And some of the... I mean, this is the case of all of Classic Who, so we're just
spitballing.
We're just nitpicking, really. But some of the cliffhangers are a bit funny. Like Sarah Jane falling and then the freeze frame where she's falling. And then also the bit where the Doctor's kind of attached to the barbed fence. And it just cuts to him looking fucking high out of his mind.
You will tell me.
That bit's fine.
Tell me.
I like that cliffhanger. We talked about that one.
I know.
I like that one. I meant the one where he's like waking up in the Thals and he's like, what's happening? God, I had a strong one last night. No.
And then also him being attacked by the mutant as well, coming out that science door.
Well, that's fun, isn't it? It's a bit of fun, isn't it? Yeah, it's a little bit fun. But what is stupid is Harry full on just stomping his foot into the mouth of a fucking clam.
Oh my god, it's right there.
The fact there's like giant moving clams down there is just hilarious. But it is the sort of like poetic license of Doctor Who you have to like suspend your disbelief a little bit in order to enjoy. Yeah. At least in the classic series.
And they talk about all these different animals, all these different creatures.
And it's just a bunch of clams.
Yeah, you see only one shadow when they're looking through that grate, and you think it's like the back of a giant frog. But then when you step out into that cave, and literally the only... Yeah, just one big clam.
And Harry one big clam, and Harry manages just to step right in it and then get gobbled on.
Why is it always my leg?
Maybe you should stop treading in clam mouths. How about that, Harry?
Yeah.
Anyway. So the whole plot of like overthrowing Davros is really cool, and the fact that like the Doctor is just so unapologetically like honest with everyone who asks him who he is. I'm a time traveller. I've come to stop the Daleks. Literally, he says that's the answer to everyone who asks where he's from.
Where are you on the understanding of relativity between space and time?
Yeah, that's really good. And obviously, they don't end up killing the Daleks because Doctor without the Daleks.
Yeah,
it'd be nothing.
Well, I mean, who would ever think to do Doctor Who without a Dalek?
I wonder.
A moron.
Yes.
What? You didn't hear me say that.
Who said that? Anyway, but so like I say, the pacing is good for Classic Who, especially. It's really good.
Yeah.
Like I said, there are some filler moments that didn't have to be in there, like the mutiny with Sarah and like the what they call them, the mutos. Mutos. That could have just been cut because it's just a filler moment, really. But like I say, there are bits and bobs scattered around this thing, but at the end of the day, it's still a really solid piece of media you can just enjoy the whole way through. And it was so fun to go back to and watch again. Terry Malloy is the name of Davros, I believe, the actor, and
I have to
he's
say,
fucking amazing in this. I fucking love his acting. The fact that the actor had to completely have his eyes gone so he couldn't see what he was doing while he was acting just shows how much he put into the role as a whole. It's just talent, pure talent on his part.
yeah.
If his name isn't Terry Malloy, I'm really sorry, but I think it is. I'm not sure.
Yeah, I think it is.
Anyway.
One other detail about Davros that I like compared to the modern Who, I mean, I like aside from the aspect of modern Davros, where instead of just using random cells, he was using his own body to come up.
No, that was a cool
Yeah.
thing they did in New Who.
But I love the design of the classic Davros because it's not polished. It's not something which is.
It's
utterly
cobbled together.
Yeah.
He lost his legs, so he made a movable chair for him to sit in.
It looks like
It works.
he just threw
in
together
lore.
all this stuff just to get him by because he was more passionate about the work he was putting into the Daleks more than himself.
More than
and
himself.
It showed.
I mean,
just on
if he
him.
was that smart of a scientist, he would have fucking made himself new eyes rather than just a blue bulb or whatever. So
yeah, but then the way that classic Who aliens, they made that. Aside from the Daleks, because I will say I like the Bronze Daleks a little bit better, just a little bit, because they
they're a tried and tested design. They're overused.
Yes,
They've been used way too much. I think we're after a redesign now, but they still have stood the test of time, evidently. So you can't deny them that they are a great.
But with
version of the
other
Daleks.
classic monsters like the Mondasian Cybermen or the original Sontarans, even the Silurians as well, from back then before they became walking iguanas.
Lizards. Yeah.
Yeah. So classic monsters, they are frightening because they don't look polished. They don't look finalized. They're not.
They look menacing.
They're not meant to be the modern day equivalent. It's like they're their own breed, their own variety. And Davros himself, he was a testament to what Skaro's science was, not necessarily what we could do
just
on
survival,
Earth.
not perfection. But he even says that, doesn't he? Survival, not perfection. And what I love about this design of the Daleks, this is the first time we see. I think it might be the second time we see like this color scheme of the Daleks. What I like about these ones is that they very literally look like miniature tanks.
Yeah.
Which is kind of what Daleks are in a nutshell. It's just miniature tanks moving around. Like, I just love that. It's such a basic color scheme, but that's exactly what like a tank color scheme would be. It's not there to look pretty. It's not there to have Technicolor like spray paint all over it, like some Daleks. Though I do like the Peter Cushing ones, but that's just neither here nor there. But these ones are actually really cool, but also makes them more menacing because you don't see them in the shadows straight away when they're lurking, and it's just it's just really really cool. So I do really really enjoy that, and I enjoy that Davros looks like. Imagine watching this episode for the first time back then and being like, what would the creator of the Daleks look like? Boom. That's literally what you would do.
He's a bit grotesque, isn't he? He's unappealing to look at. He's not.
No, yeah.
It's just that sense of Christ. What the hell happened to you?
Yeah, exactly. And all of that hate that's happened to him, he's now putting into his creations, which it makes sense for his character, and it's just a tried and tested formula for his character. Is why he keeps coming back to the show. It's brilliant. It's brilliant writing.
Yeah. And they also showed his intelligence quite well through the way that his what's his name? His lackey, the one that was opening. Nida. So the way that he would, ploy him to weasel out the.
I know the amount of times there'd be like moments, and you just see him lurking around the corner, listening in to whatever schemes are going on behind Davros's back. He'd be like, and then there'd be like a zoom in on his face, and he'd be like, Davros must know about this.
Yeah. But it showed him off as a tactical villain, not just a menacing tank boy.
And he was loyal to Davros till the end.
Oh yeah.
The amount of times you'd think he'd turn, but he did not.
No.
And after the first time, we thought nah, he's no way he's gonna. Yeah. No one's gonna turn to the good side now. The fact that like the Khaled dome gets blown up, like halfway through the entire story, shows that like the story goes beyond like that aspect of it. It's more about the story isn't about the Khaleds. It's about Davros.
Yeah. He's got no allegiance. He's got no ties with anything.
Only to him and his Daleks.
Yes.
That's all he cares about. That's all he has. And that's all he wants. Obviously, no one actually believed that Sarah and Harry died in that explosion, but they spent a long time of like the Doctor moping and being like, I've lost two very good friends today. And it's just like, they really tried to linger on that and tried to make us think that
But then they made such a
Sarah
quick
died.
friend out of that Thal girl.
Yes.
And that seemed so quick because all of a sudden he had that one little conversation just after the rocket blew up. Then he saves her from the Daleks wiping out the rest of those people.
Yeah.
Next thing you know, he's managed in two cuts to get her to rally up the rest of the surviving troops. And suddenly now she's going to blow up a bunker for this stranger.
A tiny bit rushed, but then again, like, they all had a common enemy, didn't they, in Davros? So I suppose it all kind of makes sense in that respect.
There was a lot of kind of bouncing between. These are my prisoners. No, they're my prisoners.
Yeah.
No, you're my prisoner.
Especially
Catch
in
my prisoner.
episode
Get
one.
my prisoner.
Especially
Oh wait,
in
hang on a
episode
minute.
one.
Crime's over. You're free to go. Hey, we love you now.
You're a prisoner again. Come back here.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a lot of that.
Bouncing back and forth.
But in part one, especially when they're first captured.
Yeah. And there was a lot of that kind of. I mentioned it mainly in part 5, I think it is, like when they're looking for the Time Rangers. It's not here. The Time Ringer's not here. Then they cut back to it.
Oh, here it is. Yeah, it's right here.
Damn, where's my time ring? I need to go look for my time ring.
Oh, found it!
Found it.
Literally takes no time at all in that respect.
Oh, but that ending though.
They're just spinning around and you just see their legs go up in the air and shit. Yeah, that was funny, to be honest. It's the classic Who sort of like tongue-in-cheek charm to it, really. You gotta give it the benefit of the doubt. You gotta be like, oh, you're all right.
But we gotta talk about it.
What?
The dramatized deaths of an exterminated person.
Well, I think we've already played that to death ourselves in this video, but
I know I have.
it's great.
Man.
I love it, but more importantly, the entire plot of Davros going from creating the Daleks, then being like, these Daleks do succeed. And the thing is that what's so great about the entire scene with the Doctor and Davros on their own in the lab is that the Doctor just kind of like gives Davros the idea, if you had something that could destroy the entire universe, would you release that to the world? And then that is what clicks in Davros's head from being someone who wants to create something to survive beyond him, to then someone who wants to create something that will cause mass destruction. In a little way, the Doctor created Davros by putting that idea in his head that the Daleks are that dangerous. He literally says, if you had something that could do that much damage, would you release it? And he goes, yes, that's a good idea, he basically says. So the Doctor created Davros.
So then you have that
Crazy.
perfect foil where Davros would do it, but then the Doctor later on with the wires, he wouldn't. Even though he knows what the Daleks are capable of, what they would be going on to do, and he'd still choose not to do it.
It's so cool. It really is just so. It's just the yin and yang of it, of them both. Like, he wants mass destruction, the Doctor just wants peace.
Yeah.
And is he able to commit genocide to achieve that peace or not? He's evidently not, because when it comes down to it, the Doctor doesn't want to harm a living creature if he can help it.
Out of everybody, when they have that total destruct button behind Davros, the only person that ever reached for that button was Davros, right at the end.
Yeah, and that's because the Daleks betrayed him.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No one, he
interesting.
even told them that there was the button right there.
They don't have the stomach for it.
None of the Doctors ever went for it, not even the Doctor.
No.
The only one that did was the Madman.
Yeah. Yeah, that's really interesting. I didn't even think about that, but that's so true. Yeah, crazy. But yeah, it's iconic for a reason. It's such a landmark. And like I say, it's everyone's favourite Doctor Who ever. It's like in everyone's top 10, 20.
Yeah.
Anyone who's watched it will realise how good it is. But yeah, like I don't want to like leave anything out, but like, is there anything else we've got to say?
Well, we've covered the Thals, we've covered the Khalids.
Yeah. The
The
Mutos.
Mutos, we've done the deaths.
The
we've done
Daleks,
Davros.
like the Daleks of like introduction and Davros.
For Tom Baker in this episode, you know, obviously he starts off with thinking that he's got those 3 options.
Yes.
And he's working for, you know, trying to diffuse it naturally.
And trying to like inject a little bit of humanity into Daleks' DNA. Yeah.
Then when that fails, he tries to appeal to any sense of humanity for Davros. Trying to get it out of there. And then he also tries talking it out of his teammates, you know, the scientists and the soldiers, trying that. And that
doesn't work. He has only one option left: genocide.
Yeah.
And he even says that to Sarah. And that really made him sad. He didn't want to fucking hurt a living thing.
Yeah.
Regardless if it was the Daleks or not. Which is such a Doctor thing to do. It really is when it comes down to it.
It's one of the better episodes for Tom Baker as a because he's one of these Doctors where he has those spurts of excitement and anger, but most of the time he has that kind of that stoic attitude where he's watching everything flow on, but he only really interjects in specific moments. He's not like David or Matt where his emotions are constantly running through every conversation and every action. Tom will just be standing there, he'll watch, he'll listen, and then he'll make a quip about something, if he's asked to, or just at a moment where he thinks, oh yeah, I can talk on him. Right, but then after that, it's just him just kind of letting, it's not that he's letting the plot kind of drag him on.
He's kind of letting the entire situation kind of soak in.
Yeah.
And he's trying to assess the situation silently. That's he's a very calculated Doctor, isn't he?
That's the one.
Yeah, he really is. I think Tom is the perfect sort of actor for the Doctor, really, at least this sort of Doctor where he's wise but also not quite human.
Yeah.
That's kind of what he's like, and I think, but also he's above all else moral. He's really moral, and nothing exemplates Matt more than the two wires scene.
Yeah. Also very honest. Hello, could you help me? I'm a spy.
and then he grabs them.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's comedic as well. That also is a key element in Doctor Who that you need. He's great. Sarah's great. Obviously, Harry's great. This is Harry's best one, I think.
I feel like it was a shame though that Sarah didn't really have a lot to do, with Harry and the Doctor.
Harry had a lot to do.
Because Sarah got captured. She was working on that rocket for 2 other episodes. Then she's kind of running away
with Harry.
The only real times where she had any involvement with Davros was, when she strained to that chair and then trying to talk the Doctor out of. So then it kind of struck a weird note that Davros remembered Sarah Jane after Stolen Earth, where face after all these years. It's kind of like you're expecting Sarah to have a little bit more of an impact in the story itself. I mean, she had her own moments, but there was no real thing that would make Davros remember her in this episode. And it feels like this would be that kind of moment where...
That's true. I feel like it's just more of recognising you were there. It's like that shared... It's just kind of more recognising you after all these years. That's more what it was about, I think. Which is actually really cool that New Who does reference this episode even now. I mean, so many reference that Soul on Earth referenced this episode. Magician's Apprentice referenced that episode. And more specifically, the amount of times that the scene where Davros is interrogating the Doctor, that's been referenced God knows how many times.
Yep.
Where you will tell me the reason for every Dalek defeat, and the Doctor's like, I won't do that, but you will. You'll tell me. And he's torturing the companions. It's such a Doctor Who cliffhanger, that one, where the Doctor's strapped to the chair, the companions are tied down, being tortured, and the villain is like, you will do what I say. And
but out of all the cliffhangers in that serial, episode 1 had the best.
Oh, definitely.
Because Davros also, he's flicked the switch, he's watched the Dalek do it, but then he's not shouting any orders, he's just stewing over.
Let's begin. The weaponry is perfect. It's such a great, sinister way to start, and Sarah Jane watching from behind is also a great touch for that cliffhanger as well. It's a really, really good story. It's just so good, man. It's so good.
And I think that covers everything.
I think so. That's it. Hope you guys enjoyed.
What are you rating the episode?
11 out of 10. One of my favourites, as always been in my top 10. Don't know where it is now, but it's in my top 10. I don't care. It's one of the best ever. I love it to bits.
10 out of 10 for me, my favourite classic.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Nice. Well, if you haven't watched Genesis of the Daleks, and why wouldn't you have? Watch it now, if you haven't already. And that'll do it from us. Hope you enjoyed. Cool. I'm so fucking tired.
Yes. And you know what, Zach?
What?
It's time for you to experience the pain I felt.
Oh shit! No! Die!